You're standing in a kitchen the size of a closet, and somehow it holds more than yours does. The counters are clear. The pans are all there. Nothing tumbles out when you open a door. And you can't figure out how. That was my grandmother's whole home. 4 rooms. No garage, no basement, no pantry the size of a bedroom. Yet she fed a family, kept every tool she needed, and never once dug through a pile to find a lid. I always thought I just remembered it wrong. Then one afternoon I measured her old kitchen from the photographs, and the numbers stopped making sense. Less space than my apartment. Twice the storage. That gap is what I couldn't let go of. So I went looking. And the trail led me all the way back to a book published in 1869, a household record almost nobody opens anymore. What I found inside changes how you use every drawer, every shelf, every inch of the home you already live in. No gadgets, no contractor, no money. Let me show you what I dug up. Here's the thing that first cracked my certainty. I grew up believing that a tidy home came down to 2 things: having less stuff or having more space. That's the whole story we're told. Declutter or move somewhere bigger. Buy the bins. Rent the storage unit. But my grandmother broke both rules. She didn't own less. If anything, she kept more than I do: every jar, every scrap of fabric, every tool her husband ever handed her. And she certainly didn't have more room. Her entire kitchen would fit inside my living room with space to spare. So I did something a little stubborn. I took an old photo of her counter, and I counted. In one corner, on a shelf no wider than a dinner plate, she kept 11 items. 11. Spices, a grater, 2 cutting boards, a stack of bowls, a coffee tin. On my counter, that same footprint holds a coffee maker and a pile of mail. 11 versus 2, same square inches. That was the moment the hunch became a case. I started asking around. I posted the question on a few frugal living forums where folks my age gather, people who grew up in small farmhouses and city walk-ups, and the replies came flooding in. One woman wrote, "My mother's kitchen was tiny and it never felt full. I've spent 40 years trying to copy it and I can't." Another said, "I wish someone had written down how they did it before they all passed." That line stopped me cold. Before they all passed. Because someone did write it down, and that's where this gets strange. The trick these women were reaching for wasn't lost by accident. It was replaced. Sometime in the last century, the way we're taught to store things in a home flipped completely, and it flipped for a reason that had nothing to do with helping you. Follow me back to 1869. There's a book from that year called The American Woman's Home. It was written by 2 sisters, Catherine Beecher and her younger sister, Harriet Beecher Stowe, the one who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. Most people know Harriet. Almost nobody knows what Catherine spent her life obsessed with. She was obsessed with the small home, the efficient home, the home a woman could run without wearing herself down to the bone. And in that book, Catherine drew something that stunned me when I first saw it. She designed a kitchen based on the galley of a steamship. Think about that for a second. A ship has no room to waste. Every foot of a ship is fought over. So the cooks aboard those steamers had, out of pure necessity, worked out how to store an entire kitchen in a space narrower than a hallway. Catherine Beecher studied those galleys, and she brought that thinking into the American house. Her rule was simple, and it was radical. Store nothing flat and stacked when you can store it standing and separated. Build shelves shallow, not deep, so nothing hides behind anything else. And keep every single item at the exact spot where your hand first reaches for it. That's it. That's the seed of the whole thing. And when I read it, I recognized my grandmother's kitchen instantly. She never stacked. She stood things up. Her shelves were shallow, 1 item deep, all of it visible. But here's where the mystery deepened instead of closing. Because if this method was published in a popular American book more than 150 years ago, if it was this good, this simple, this free, then why did it vanish? Why did our kitchens get bigger and messier at the same time? Somebody had a reason to bury this. And once I understood who, I got angry. Let me tell you what happened to Catherine Beecher's idea, because this is the part that made me put down my coffee and sit up straight. Her method assumed one thing: that you would keep what you own for a lifetime and organize it once, wisely, forever. Shallow shelves, standing storage, a place for each thing. It was designed to make a small, cheap home feel complete. It was designed so you would never need more. And that, it turns out, was the problem. Not for you. For the people selling. In the 1920s and 30s, a new industry grew up around the American kitchen cabinet makers, appliance sellers, and later, the whole business of home improvement. And their entire livelihood depended on one idea taking root in your head. The idea that if your home feels crowded, you need more storage, more cabinets, deeper drawers, a bigger house. Catherine Beecher's book said the opposite. It said the space you have is enough, you're just using it wrong. That message doesn't sell a single cabinet. So it quietly slipped out of the manuals, out of the magazines, out of the conversation. The deep cabinet won, the shallow shelf lost. Not because it worked better, because it sold better. And here's the proof it wasn't an accident. A deep kitchen cabinet is 24 inches from front to back. Reach into one and tell me what lives in the back 8 inches. Nothing you can see, nothing you can reach without emptying the front. Roughly a third of every deep cabinet in America is dead space you paid for and can't use. Catherine Beecher warned about exactly this in 1869. She wrote that deep shelving wastes the reach of the arm and buries the goods behind. Buries the goods. Her own words. More than 150 years ago, she saw the trap coming. But knowing the trap existed wasn't enough for me. I needed to know how she actually beat it. So I kept reading, and the next thing I found is something you can do to a single drawer tonight, for free. The answer came down to one word. And it's the strangest word in this whole investigation. Vertical. Everything my grandmother stored, she stored standing up. And I mean everything you'd never think to stand up. Her frying pans didn't stack in a greasy tower in the back of a cabinet. They stood on their edges, side by side, like records in a crate. Her pot lids stood in a row. Her cutting boards, her baking sheets, her cooling racks, all of them stood upright, filed like folders instead of piled like plates. I thought this was just her being fussy. It isn't. It's physics. When you stack flat, you can only ever reach the top item without disturbing the rest. A stack of 10 pans is really one usable pan and 9 buried ones. But when you stand those same 10 pans on their edges, every single one is a front row item. You can pull any one without touching another. You just quadrupled your usable storage without adding 1 inch of space. I tested it that same week. I took my kitchen drawer, the deep one, the disaster, the one that fought me every morning. It held a mess of stacked containers and lids I could never match up. I emptied it. Then I stood everything on its edge. The containers filed upright. The lids filed upright behind them, sorted by size. The same drawer that used to hold a jumbled heap of maybe 15 pieces now held 26, and I could see and grab every one of them. I counted twice because I didn't believe it. And the cost of doing this? Nothing. I didn't buy a single organizer. To make the dividers that hold things upright, I used what Catherine Beecher's generation used. I cut down a cereal box and a couple of shoeboxes, stood them in the drawer as walls, and that was that. Cardboard. Free. My grandmother used old wooden cigar boxes and the ends of orange crates. Same idea, same result. Now, if you're sitting there thinking this is all fine for someone with strong hands and good knees, someone who can haul out a whole drawer and rebuild it, I want you to stay right here, because this next part is the part I built for you. I know a lot of you are watching on a fixed income, in a body that doesn't bend the way it used to. Maybe getting down to a low cabinet is the hardest part of your day. Maybe your hands ache by afternoon and lifting a stack of pans is out of the question. I hear from you every day, and I promise you are on my mind through this whole investigation. Because here's the beautiful thing about what Catherine Beecher figured out: it was designed for exactly you. Her galley kitchen wasn't built for young, strong people. It was built to save the body, to eliminate the bending, the reaching, the lifting, the hunting. Every principle in it removes strain instead of adding it. So let me give you the version that costs almost nothing and asks almost nothing of your body. Start with 1 drawer or 1 shelf. Just one. Don't touch the rest. Pick the one you open the most, the one that frustrates you daily. You're not going to reorganize your whole home. You're going to fix one spot, and you're going to feel the difference tomorrow morning. If you want to go deeper into this investigation before we get there, I've put the full research together in a book, Start Smart, where I walk through exactly how these principles were systematically replaced and what you can do about it, room by room, starting today. It's available through the link in the description, and everything in it is designed for the home you already have, with no money required. Take a look if this is landing the way I think it is. Now, the standing up trick. You don't need to lift heavy stacks. Do it a piece at a time. Take out one item, stand it on its edge, take out the next. If your hands are weak, you don't even need real dividers. A few upright cardboard boxes, a bread pan turned on its side, a couple of tall cans will hold your items standing. Free, light. No tools, no drill, no bending under a sink. And here's the mobility piece that matters most. Catherine Beecher had a rule she called keeping things at the point of first use. It means you store an item exactly where your body first needs it. At the height your hand naturally rests, not where there happens to be an empty shelf. If you use your good pan at the stove, it lives at the stove, at waist height, standing up, one reach away. Not in a low cabinet you have to kneel for. Not on a high shelf you need a stool for. Think about how much of your day is spent traveling to your own belongings, bending for the pot, reaching for the strainer, crossing the room for the towel. My grandmother, in her tiny kitchen, almost never took a step because everything she touched daily was already within the sweep of one arm. That wasn't luck, that was the whole design. So the version for you is this. Move your 5 most used items, just 5, to the exact spot your hand reaches first, at the height that doesn't make you bend or stretch. Stand them up so you can see them. That's the entire task. No money, no strength, no help required. And it will give you back more comfort than a $1,000 cabinet ever could. But there was still one piece of this I hadn't cracked, because my grandmother's kitchen didn't just hold more and strain her less. It held more of the right things in the right order, and that order came from somewhere. That's where a second buried record comes in, and this one has a name most people have never heard. Her name was Lillian Gilbreth, and she is the missing key to this whole case. If the name sounds faintly familiar, it might be from an old movie called Cheaper by the Dozen. She was the mother of 12 children in that story. But that's the least interesting thing about her. Lillian Gilbreth had a doctorate. She was one of the first people in America to study, scientifically, with a stopwatch and a notebook, exactly how a human body moves through a kitchen. In the 1920s, she did something nobody had done before. She followed women through their kitchens and counted their steps. She measured how far a hand traveled to make a simple meal. And what she found was staggering. In a poorly arranged kitchen, baking a strawberry shortcake took 281 steps. In a kitchen she rearranged using her principles, the same shortcake took 45 steps, 281 down to 45. Same cake, same woman, same body. The only thing she changed was where things were stored. That number hit me like cold water, because it meant the clutter and the exhaustion were never about how much you own or how much room you have. They were about arrangement, pure arrangement. And arrangement is free. Gilbreth built on the exact idea Catherine Beecher planted 60 years earlier. She proved it with a stopwatch. She drew what we now call the work zone, the small circle around you where your hands land without you moving your feet. Inside that circle goes what you use constantly. Just outside it goes what you use weekly. Far away goes what you touch twice a year. Most of us do this exactly backward. We keep the everyday pan in a bottom cabinet and the holiday roasting pan at eye level. I checked my own kitchen against her rule and I was mortified. My most used skillet lived in the hardest spot to reach. A fondue set I'd used once since 1984 sat at perfect arm height. I had it upside down. Most of us do. So I fixed it, following Gilbreth. And here's what nobody tells you about doing this. The room gets bigger. Not really, of course. But when everything you touch daily is in the circle of your reach, the space stops fighting you. It starts to feel roomy, calm. That feeling I had as a child in my grandmother's 4 little rooms, I finally understood it wasn't the size of the rooms. It was that nothing in them was ever in my way. But I still hadn't found the single thing that ties it all together, the one instruction that turns these separate tricks into a system you could hand to anyone. And when I finally found it, buried in the oldest source of all, I actually laughed out loud. Because it was so simple I'd walked past it my whole life. Here is where the case snaps shut. I went back one more time past Lillian Gilbreth in the 1920s, past Catherine Beecher in 1869, to the very first edition of Catherine Beecher's earlier work, a treatise on domestic economy, printed in 1841. This is The Buried Record, a book that sold for generations, sat in countless American homes, and then fell so far out of print that most people today have never heard its name. And in it, Beecher lays down the one principle underneath everything my grandmother ever did. She wrote that in a well-ordered house, and I'm giving you the heart of her words, a place is provided for each article, and each article is kept in its place. That sounds ordinary until you read the part everyone forgets the part that makes it work. She wrote that the place for each thing must be decided by how often it is used and how near it is needed, not by where empty room happens to be. That is the secret. That is the whole thing. You do not store an item where there is space. You store it where you use it, as often as you use it, standing up so you can see it. Frequency and nearness decide everything. Empty space decides nothing. Read it again slowly, because it flips the way we've all been taught. We fill empty shelves because they're empty. We shove the seldom used thing into the good spot because the good spot was open. Beecher says that's exactly backward. The good spot belongs to the thing your hand reaches for the most. The empty far corner belongs to the thing you touch once a year. You arrange your home around your own movements, not around the accident of where a shelf sits. And she gave one more instruction in that 1841 book that I want you to carry out of here above all else. She said to sort your belongings not by what they are, but by when you use them. Not all the pots together, not all the tools together. Instead, everything you need for your morning coffee in one reachable spot, together, even if that means a cup and a spoon and a tin of coffee that would normally live in 3 different places. Group by the moment, not by the category. That is what no modern organizing show tells you, and it is the single thing that made my grandmother's tiny kitchen work like a machine. So here is your whole weekend, and it costs nothing. Pick your most used daily task, coffee, breakfast, tea, whatever you do every single morning. Gather every item that task requires. Put them all together, standing up, visible, at the exact height your hand rests, at the point where you first reach for them. One task, one spot, one reach. Then do the next task next weekend. That's it. That's the method the ship cooks knew, that Catherine Beecher wrote down in 1841, that Lillian Gilbreth proved with a stopwatch in the 1920s, that my grandmother lived every day in 4 small rooms, and that a whole industry was happy to let you forget, because a person who arranges what they own never needs to buy more room to put it in. I tried the full system in my own home over 3 weekends. I didn't buy one thing. And the kitchen I'd called too small for 15 years suddenly had clear counters, visible tools, and drawers that closed on the first try. It was never too small. It was only ever arranged by accident instead of on purpose. What you just recovered is something that was quietly taken from you and sold back to you as furniture. The room you needed was inside the room you already have. And I think you're exactly the kind of person who can feel that in your bones, someone who looks at the easy answer everyone repeats, the one that always seems to end with you spending money and thinks, no, that doesn't add up. There has to be a better way. That instinct is right. It was always right. Trust it. Now I want to hear from you. Think back to the number that stopped me in my tracks. Lillian Gilbreth counting 281 steps to bake one shortcake, cut down to 45 just by moving where things lived. I want you to picture the one item in your kitchen that is stored in the worst possible spot right now, the thing you use every day that's buried, low, or across the room. Tell me what it is in the comments. Just name that one item and tell me where you're watching from. I read them, and I promise the answers will surprise you as much as they surprised me. And if you believe, like I do, that the knowledge our grandmothers lived by shouldn't die in an out-of-print book from 1841, then come stand with the people who are digging it back up. Subscribe and you're one of us folks who take back the practical wisdom that got quietly buried so someone could sell us the fix. Because the next record I'm opening is even stranger. There was a way our grandmothers kept a pantry full of food fresh for months without a refrigerator, using nothing but the temperature of a wall and the direction it faced. I found the document that explains it. And once you see it, You'll never look at the coldest corner of your home the same way again. I'll see you there. Before you go, let me tell you where this really opens up. This video showed you the idea, but inside the Wise Living Circle, I walk you through every trick, room by room. And if you're stuck, you can ask me directly, and I answer you myself. No robot. You'd belong with thousands of seniors already in there with us. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. And you can cancel any time.